Well, I'm here with Don and Terry Lamond, and I thank you both so much for allowing me to talk to you about this very special project called Back to the Past, where, of course, I'm playing along with these old 78 recordings that have been reconditioned and adding new drums. And let me introduce the listeners to Don and Terry Lamond. Hello, Don.
How you doing?
Great. And Terry?
Hi, Danny.
Hey, how you doing? Okay. You probably also heard a very special symbol being used in those recordings, and that's because it's the symbol that you let me use. That's your SIS symbol.
Well, of course, you were more of a word than I was because you knew that you were using it. Usually, I don't listen to the symbols. I listen to the overall situation, you know.
Right, but to me it was really nice to have that piece of history connected, of course, the symbol that you used on so many recordings, to use it on this one. Just as the overall concept of taking these old recordings, which of course have been, in existence for 40 years, 50 years, but the drums have pretty much disappeared. So the idea of this concept was to replace the drums, to not to take anything away from them, but kind of add to the musical value of the songs. Did you feel that that was what...
Yeah.
And did you enjoy it? Did you think it was interesting?
Yeah, I did.
That's great. And Terry, why don't you make a comment? What do you think?
Well, I loved it, Danny. As I told you, I used to go and hear Nat Cole in the Piccadilly, and when he had the trio, and I felt that it enhanced the whole sound, and I loved. I have to say I love what you did on the Glenn Miller takes because, I was just I never thought that Glenn Miller swung too much. And that was the first time that I heard a swinging drummer behind the Glenn Miller band, and I loved it. And I loved the Louis Armstrong things too. And also Ray Charles. The whole thing that I think people, this is just an opinion, I think some of the younger people lose sight of with drums with groups and things like that. And a lot of drummers sound like they're building houses, They don't just sit back and be the heartbeat. And I think what's beautiful on these old takes, certainly the drummers they used in those days were wonderful, but the whole recording engineering part of it didn't seem to get the right idea of being able to get the rhythm section to sound. And I love the concept of a more modern drummer enhancing these great pieces, because they're great jazz pieces, in my opinion. And I know my sweet husband feels like that too.
Don, I mentioned this before as we were listening. You, of course, did so much studio work as well as the great jazz playing, but, you're known for some of the legendary recordings that you played on. One of the tracks that everybody around the world knows, of course, is you playing on the Bobby Darin recordings of Mac the Knife and Somewhere Beyond the Sea. What were your thoughts about when you would accompany a singer, and especially since Terry...
I worked with him several times, He was like a smart aleck kid from Philadelphia, And I liked his attitude, So on one of the intros, I just said, I'm going to play anything. Anything, So I try to and he likes it,
And that's great.
From the sea, I think.
Yeah, somewhere Beyond the Sea. It became such a big hit.
Can I add to that?
Sure, Terry, go ahead.
I know that story, and when he did that, the funny thing was that the manager came over and said, what are you doing, And Don just said, well, I did what I felt like doing. and manager said, take it out. And Bobby Darin said, no, he won't take it out. He'll leave it in. And it's become kind of a legendary thing among musicians about that intro. Was it Beyond the Sea, Don, or Mac? Yeah, it was either one or the other.
And also I was thinking about other singers. I remember you told me a story about Ella Fitzgerald when you played, and Ray Brown was the bass player, and he said, just play brushes, you'll be okay, or something like that.
Well, he said that she just wanted brushes and don't play any extra licks or anything. Just play time. So that's what I tried to do, you know, except a few times when I couldn't do that. I tried to keep it along that pattern, you know. She just like a straight, you know. I didn't have any trouble with her.
Who's he talking about?
This is Ella Fitzgerald.
Oh, Ella, yeah.
And I'm just thinking here, I just overdubbed on her tracks, and I played a little bit busier than she probably would have liked. Well, Ella, wherever you are, I hope you like.
Very simple. Even
I
with
hope.
her piano players.
Sure. I hope you like what we did. I mean, when someone, other comments about this particular, you know, approach where I'm overdubbing over the old tracks is that it makes it sound a little more like a live recording.
Yeah. It does. Especially that Glenn Miller thing.
Yeah. And those were the hardest tracks to play with because you can hear the hi-hat so clearly because it was so loud. But
Yeah.
you know, what I was doing, I tried to go as though there were two drummers playing and see if I could blend in.
That's tough right off the bat.
Don, you've played with so many great musicians, been on so many recordings. Of course, you're known the most for having played with Woody Herman and, you know, made such an impression into the world. Any thoughts for the young drummers and me included for playing with a big band, playing with tracks like this in the studio where you're playing along with the group? What are some of the things you concentrate? Is time pretty much one of the main focuses?
You betcha. Time and beat, and not too busy, and and the fill-ins don't make them too busy. Make them pretty simple. Every time. And every once in a while you're going to explain with a busy one. But a lot of guys try to overplay, you know. Overplay and overplay. And it takes away from the arrangement, you know.
Yeah, and a lot of times. Oh, go ahead, Terry.
Who influenced you the most, Don? Who influenced you the most?
Like from a drum standpoint, you're
Yeah,
thinking, Terry?
from a
What
drum
drummers or drummer influence you the most is what Terry's asking.
Three of them. Sid Catlett, Joe Jones, and Buddy Rich. Those three.
Can you describe what about each one influenced you?
Buddy Rich was so competent over every perspective of the drum. And Joe and Sid got that old home feeling, you know, like it's hard to explain. You have to be there. Like particularly Sid Catlett. First time I heard him, boy, a guy named Robin Gould, trumpet player from Washington. He was listening to some stories he heard about Sid Catlett, and I listened to him. And when Sid played some stuff with Benny, and Benny didn't admit to it, you know. We were on a plane once, going to New Orleans, flying down there. He said, "Who's your favorite drummer?" I said, "Sid Catlett." He said, "Oh, you kidding?" He said, "You mean you liked him over Gene Krupa?" I said, "Yes, I did. I like Gene, but I like Sid Catlett better." Oh, that's something.
One of the things that I think so important about this new concept is that hopefully it will educate the younger generations who listen to this the importance of a drummer, bass player, piano player, to listen to the vocalist. You see, today what I notice, and that's something I shared with you a minute ago about a friend of mine who cut the CD, and the drummer was paying no attention to her or to the tune itself. And that's one of the things that I've always noticed about Buddy and Joe Jones that he mentioned. I'm blessed because I was brought up in the days of these guys, you know, and I got an education. Joe Jones could with his brushes literally sit down and play like Sweet Lorraine without anybody, and you would know it was Sweet Lorraine by the way he played. You know, it was extraordinary. And I think that that's what I liked about this, the stuff that you did with the King Cole Trio, with the Nat Cole Trio. I think that's important stuff because I heard you listening to the tune and listening to the singers.
You know, of all the tracks on this recording, that's the one that's probably, I mean, it's all interesting, you know, to be interpreted in terms of, you know, how this whole process is even being done. But the Nat King Cole Trio was the one that had no drums at all. That's right. And it was a question, do we even do this? But it was so easy to play with them. And, you know, I hope, because these CDs exist already without the drums, just interesting to see what they sound like with. And I hope he would approve wherever he is.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure he would. It made a great big difference. It gave it a whole modern feel, and certainly enhanced it, and particularly some of the things with the Sinatra and the Ray Charles stuff. I loved them all. I thought they were wonderful. I really did. And of course, you know how I feel about Billy, so.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, Don, I want to wrap this up. Thank you so much for talking and listening to me playing with those old recordings, and also for letting me use your cymbal, that cymbal that's been with you for years. And I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for the support.
Oh, my pleasure, you know that.
Okay, thanks, Don.